Dragon Ball FighterZ had a huge impact on me. It's a great fighting game, but also an amazing Dragon Ball game. But something's missing. In this video, we'll focus on the music. Well, not the original music of the game. Because although the feeling of the original music really nailed it and evoked the spirit of Dragon Ball, there is no interactivity at all between it and the player. And that's not necessarily bad, but I feel like we could do more. The music of the game has many other possibilities and could cover some other functions. It can give information and feedback to the player, engage him, make him feel emotions, tension, or relief. In the game's original audio, whatever the decisions of the players, the music stays the same. It doesn't really convey any meaning to our actions. The impact of choosing through different actions just isn't there. Music in fighting games usually isn't interactive, because the interaction is quick and complex. If the music is interactive, then it has to be very responsive and have many possibilities of variations depending on lots of parameters. As a composer for games, I decided to take on the challenge that kept me passionate for the past years and tried to compose an interactive music for Dragon Ball FighterZ. It seems to me that a part of the essence of Dragon Ball resides in training a lot and getting amazing results out of it. So, I focused my music system on giving a very diverse palette of feedback that gives rewards and motivates the player to pursue his quest to become the strongest. Here is an explanation of all the features of the music system I've built. To begin with, the music is made to be heard by player 1 only. It adapts to his situation and choices of gameplay. In an ideal case, each player would have a pair of headphones, with the music keeping each one in focus in different simultaneous versions. Since I'm no programmer, this two-player system is just theory right now, and the system only works for one player for now. So anyways, let's jump into what the system actually does. First, you begin the match with a small introduction of the main characters. The music is divided in two parts, one for each player's introduction, and can transition from the first to the second whenever needed, thus adapting to all the possible length of the animations. The transition happens with a crossfade and works just fine because the structure of the pieces are the same, they only have a different harmony. They actually play at the same time, but while one is at full volume, the other one is muted, and vice versa. You can skip the intro whenever, and it takes you to the following section with a drum roll. We then hear a low-intensity loop that sets up attention, giving a signal that the fight can start at any time. As the players look for an opening in the opponent's card, several variations of the loops can pass, that are picked randomly in what is called an open structure. When a player gets the first hit, may it be right at the start or later, a short musical motif is played, which signals which player did it. There are several variations that can be picked randomly. The system can then move on to the main fight music. Before going into the details of the main fight music, here are some other things that can happen from now on. When we lose the fight, a transition leads us to a new track, This track is divided into two sections. The first one lets us know that the fight is over and differs depending on the outcome. If we lost and the enemy had all his characters left, then the music is very thin and weak to evoke the gap between our strength. If we took out one or even two of his characters, then the music will be more positive, urging us to challenge him again. If we actually won the fight, the music will then celebrate our victory. Here too, it will differ whether we have defeated our opponent with difficulty, leaving our team almost wiped out, or if we actually didn't lose any of our characters. I'd also like to compose a win section for when you perfect your opponent. But hey, not everyone pulls it off, so let's first focus on the 99% of the players. The second section of the track is a developing looping section, quite a long one to boot. You can move on to this section by waiting for the end of the first one. Or by simply skipping it. A short drum effect helps us move to this part whenever. The music system then waits for you to rematch and fades back to the introduction when you're ready. Finally, let's talk about the main music, the one you're going to hear throughout the majority of the game, the fight music. It's divided into two big sections, with very different roles. The normal fight tune, playing when nothing too big happens, and the combo tune, that plays when player 1 is doing a combo. Let's first talk about the normal fight tune. The orchestration changes depending on which one of your characters is currently engaged. There are three possibilities: the point character, the middle character, or the anchor character. Those are basically variations of the same composition. They have the same structure, harmonies, rhythm and melodies, but the orchestration is different, meaning that the instruments aren't organized the same way. It's like they paint different colors of the same tune. Actually, switching between exchangeable tracks in a game music is called reorchestration. A technique called vertical layering, where you add and remove some tracks, is used in this next situation. Only the rhythmic parts of the tune are allowed to change. If player 2 attacks and player 1 blocks, the accompanying rhythm turns into something faster, more complex and unexpected, illustrating the enemy's blows and the focused state we're in. This feature can be combined with the reorchestration technique. When we stop blocking, the accompanying rhythm goes back to normal. Another reorchestration feature comes into play when player 2 begins a combo. First, a short percussion effect highlights the situation. Several variations of this effect are possible, and are chosen randomly to add more variety. Then, as the main music fades out, some of the tracks remain for a while, though more distant. But next we hear a different orchestration of the same tune. Since we can't do anything while our opponent is doing a combo, the orchestration used here feels as if the music is being smothered and sets the tension as you wait for the enemy to make a mistake or finish his combo. Note that it cannot be combined with the blocking feature, since you can't block and be struck at the same time. When player 2 finishes or drops his combo, the music quickly goes back to normal. It's also the case when playing the animation of a super, and the game has already determined that player 2 will kill a character. One more instrumental layer can be added to the music when player 1 uses his Sparking Blast. A guitar solo comes in during the period when he's active. During the activation, we hear an electric guitar effect that signals the beginning of the solo. This effect temporarily lowers the volume of all other tracks. The guitar was recorded to combine with any parts of the tune, thus being different depending on when you decide to activate your sparking. There can't be any structural or harmonical problems. Whenever a character dies, the music fades out as a transition signals what the current situation is, before throwing us right back into the main music. There is a transition for each situation. There are 2 characters left to play 1. There is only 1 character left to play 1, in which case the tension is much higher. There are 2 characters left to play 2. Or finally, there's only 1 character left to play 2. In this last case scenario, since the situation corresponds to an advantage for player 1, the music feels like the battle's almost won, giving us the last motivation. If player 1 only has 1 character left, then a stressful, low guitar track adds up to the music. It gives us feedback on our current predicament. Although if it's player 2 who only has 1 character left, then it's a different guitar layer we hear, sharper and bouncier, rewarding us and urging us to keep going. These 2 situations aren't mutually exclusive and can happen simultaneously. Thus, it's important that the 2 guitar layers should combine too. When this happens, they come at a low volume, in order to leave some space for the rest of the music. The guitar solo for the Sparking Blast can also be added, which reduces the volume of the guitar tracks even further. I will now leave this section for a bit, because the musical structure as well as the intensity of the normal fight tune actually depends on some things happening in the combo tune. That is why I'll first introduce the features of this other section, that is, the second big part of the main music. It happens when player 1 starts a combo. A melodic motif comes in, discreetly fading out the normal fight music and leading us to a more dynamic section, starting with a slap bass solo. As long as the combo lasts, the music will develop, becoming more epic as time goes. Anytime during a combo, it's possible to drop it or to finish it in an inefficient way. For instance, it's possible that we don't get a knockdown, leaving our opponent active immediately. We can also miss our input's timing, allowing our opponent to recover. If this happens, A short musical motif will carry us back to the normal fight music. Since this situation can occur at any time, I programmed the system to be able to transition at every single bar of the combo tune. This actually means composing 20 different transitions. This transition also occurs if we start a combo and immediately drop it. Since it happens quickly, we don't leave the normal fight music. The rising and falling motifs come then to underline the attempts of the player. Moreover, if the player starts a new combo a few moments after dropping one, the system won't consider it a drop and will keep its momentum. So, the player can drop his combo, but it can also finish it with a level 3 super or any move that gives him a knockdown, or what is called okizeme. This means that he has time to move while his opponent awaits his recovery. The music then ends at the next bar in a triumphant conclusion. Once more, 20 different conclusions were composed to fit with each exit point of the combo tune at the end of every bar. Those conclusions are followed by a short transition segment chosen at random that brings us back to the normal fight music. An idea I had was a virtual meter keeping track of the number of combos done by player 1 throughout the fight. I called it the combo count. Each time a combo is started, the number goes up and it can even rise by several digits if the combos last for long. At the same time as the count rises, the normal fight music's intensity increases as well, as more and more layers add to the tune. This affects the normal fight music in all its possible variations. If you guys play the game with this music, you can still do whatever you like. But let's be clear, you won't get anything from the system as long as you don't try some combos. This system is precisely here in order to give you extreme motivation. As the value of the combo count rises, the number of layers played when ending a combo and going back to the normal fight is also higher. The count can go up to 15. Under 12, the system of the normal fight picks randomly between section 1 and 2 of the tune, looping them indefinitely with occasional variations. Starting from 12, the system advances in the structure. We then hear, for the first time, the sections 3 and 4 of the music, chained randomly and with several possible variations. Within these sections, every other interactivity parameters are still taken into account. This behavior of the system is thought as the ultimate reward for the player who works a lot in training mode. The more combos he attempts and the longer they are, the more he'll be rewarded with an intense and epic music that will support him. As for the combo music, it will ask very difficult inputs of the player in order for him to push the boundaries and hear more and more epic developments. Now that you know everything my music system does, I can finally show you a full match featuring this system. I hope you'll enjoy it. See you at the end of this video!
2人の強さを足しただけじゃないぞ。さらに大幅アップだ。 鈍ってるな。そんな小さい体でこれだけの木を。さすがですね、父さん。
And here you have it. I hope you enjoyed the result. And if you want to know more about the system, feel free to ask in the comments. I'm considering doing a video to explain in detail my composition process on this project. I'd also like to get into more technical stuff about the implementation, but this represents a tremendous amount of work and I'd like to know first if you guys are interested in it. Also, if you want to support me and help me produce more content, any help on my Patreon would be very much appreciated. If you have some questions or topics you'd want me to explore, you can even request episodes on Patreon. Thank you for watching, and see you next time in the Gamer Score.